As you know, the Meat Eater Live Tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.
You're listening to the Sportsman's Nation Podcast Network, brought to you by Onyx Maps. Now, if you haven't had the opportunity to get Onyx Maps on your phone, you need to get Onyx Maps on your phone, and I'm going to tell you why. Number one, I am the kind of guy who likes to know where I'm at all times, and I like to do a lot of running and gunning. So there's times where access is very important for me, knowing where I was at, knowing how to get to a specific location, especially in the dark of morning or night, getting in and getting out. And the best part for me is that I have GPS on my phone, and Onyx allows you to leave basically breadcrumbs and leave a trail or your access routes on your phone, save those access routes, and then use your GPS going in and out of your tree stand locations every single day. And it's awesome because you won't get lost in the dark. And I use that so much, that little portion in itself, so much throughout the season that it's probably the most useful function of that app. Now, you can also leave waypoints like where your trail cameras are at, where your tree stands are at, where you see scrapes and rubs, or marking trailheads or campsites. This is the perfect app for a do-it-yourself hunter. I mean, really for all hunters, because it allows you to journal your properties that you hunt, right? And the more information you have, the more successful you will be on a yearly basis, because you keep gathering data and gathering data and gathering data. And soon you'll see trends in that data, and those trends will lead you to hunting more efficiently and becoming more successful, in my opinion. So go to Onyx or wherever you download your apps, pick up Onyx, and you can use the discount code NATION20, NATION 20, and save 20% off for first-time users. Onyx Maps.
My name is Clay Newcomb, and I'm the host of the Bear Hunting Magazine podcast. I'll also be your host into the world of hunting the icon of North American wilderness, the bear. We'll talk about tactics, gear, conservation, but we'll also bring you into some of the wildest country on the planet, chasing bear. You are listening to the Bear Hunting Magazine podcast. I've got two good buddies with me at the global headquarters this week, Jonathan Webster, Tyrel Denison. Both of them relatively new hunters. One of them really new, one of them less new, but has entered into a new phase of his hunting. We talk about limiting factors of hunting, and I was surprised at what they said. It informed the way that I now view new people coming into hunting. Very fun. It's just a fun conversation I have with these two guys. Be sure this week to check out our friends over at W Hunting Supply right here before Christmas. They're having a sale on their Alpha Astro bundles. $100 off the bundles at dusupply.com. Alpha and Astro is our tracking devices we use for hounds. Check them out. Also, check out our buddies at Western Bear Foundation. Joe Condelis, president and founder of the Western Bear Foundation. He's actually got an article in the January-February issue of Bear Hunting Magazine. The Western Bear Foundation, though, is a nonprofit hunting conservation organization for bear hunters and bear conservation. Lastly, the next thing that we're going to be doing is baiting bears this spring. check out our buddies at Northwoods. Man, I say buddy a lot. I've been told not to say buddy so much, but I can't help it because these guys are my buddies. Check out Northwoods Bear Products for a full line of scents. I always say that these commercial scents are chemically designed to be more potent and powerful than any natural scent that we can put out for bears. So where it's legal and you're baiting bears, you should be using Northwoods Bear Products at northwoodsbearproducts.net. And this is probably the most important thing that we've said thus far on the podcast is right now, between now and New Year's, we're going to be having $15 subscriptions, new subscriptions and renewals to Bear Hunting Magazine. If you've been looking for that entry point, that place where you can say, now I can justify becoming a subscriber to Bear Hunting Magazine. If you've been looking for that, this is it. Go to bear-hunting.com and you can become a subscriber to our magazine, $15, or you can renew. Maybe you have a subscription to Bear Hunting Magazine, and even if it's not up for renewal, you can come to the website right now and just do a standard renewal. It'll cost you $15, and you can renew your subscription. It'll just add on. We also have, for a limited time, a 3-year renewal for that $15, which would be $45 for 3 years. But hey, that helps us out a ton to be a subscriber to the magazine, and you get it mailed to your door 6 times a year. Tons of fun. Lastly, hey, the podcast is growing, and in 2020 we're going to be doing a better job of a lot of things. And it helps us when you give us a review. It also helps us when you share a podcast with a buddy. So you can help us. You can help us by, if you hear a podcast, a specific episode that you really like, send it to a friend, encourage them to listen to it, and we just really appreciate it. Hey, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from the crew here at Bear Hunting Magazine.
Sound like Larry the Cable Guy. That's how authentic his experience.
I tell you what.
You're not allowed to say "get her done" in this podcast.
No,
I'm
sir.
just going to come out.
Not even in just limited to this podcast. Just
Have you
never.
ever said that in a real context?
And meant it?
Yeah.
No. Thank God.
I went up. We went on a what was it? Oh no, it's Hot Springs. We went on a duck boat tour in Hot Springs, and probably one of the most stereotypically redneck men I've ever seen was our duck boat driver, which shouldn't be surprising.
Right.
Tank top, tattoos, hat, just all this stuff.
Yeah.
You couldn't understand him, and you definitely couldn't understand him through the microphone he was wearing when he was telling you about everything.
Right.
And he'd be like, "Oh man, see bear, oh that big old bang, man, old dingo," and
especially coming through the
yeah, exactly,
elaborate duck boat microphone speaker system.
Right. And then, but you knew he told a joke because a guy behind us who spoke fluent Hot Springs redneck would just go, "Get her done." Anytime a joke came out. Because it'd be something
He'd say,
like
"Get her
factual.
done."
Yeah, he'd say something factual like, "Oh, man, a bathhouse. And then nothing. And then he'd be like, "Oh, is there a mirror? And then you hear, "Get her done."
And you knew it was funny.
I know it's a joke. And I'm like, ha.
And you were like, "Laugh, boys, laugh."
I understood that reverence.
It was just me and Sarah, and we're just like, we laugh now. Ha ha.
The Arkansas boom.
Yeah.
The duck boat driver was probably my cousin. I all my family still lives down in Hot Springs.
Yeah.
For real?
Yeah.
Family in Hot Springs?
Both my parents are originally from Hot Springs.
I had no
so
idea.
their extended family lives there.
What took him to Mena?
Work.
Oh.
My dad in 1984 got a job over there.
Well, all right. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Huh.
I grew up, I've been in all manner of Texas and been around all manner of Texas redneck, so I can handle Texas redneck. But there are some enclaves of Oklahoma and Arkansas that I can't. Like, I just literally, I can't.
What do you mean? You
It's
can't
just even
understand
I can't
them?
understand them. Like,
Really?
it's rare. It's rare. But there are some. Like, I distinctly remember when I was traveling around with Melissa Talks doing, like, Teen Mania worship events. And we were in Jay, Oklahoma.
Yes.
And there's a big old fella, sweet, like, nicest dude in the world. And I mean, he had like the welder's holes in his shirts and everything, just blue collar, salt of the earth guy.
Welder holes. What do you mean?
Like when you're welding, you spark your
Yeah,
metal and it sparks
you
holes
get
in your
holes
shirt.
in your- gotcha, gotcha.
I mean, I grew up. My dad was a welder, and I grew up around. We were a very working class family, and so I instantly see stuff like that, and I know he's a welder, or he's been a welder, or he's welding on stuff in the shop.
Sherlockian right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, all
and
right.
so like I knew that guy, but like I was like, bro, I can't understand you. Like I know who you are by like observing you because I've just been around it, but it was just like those words, those don't sound like words to me. I didn't tell him that, but I always have to like focus, like, oh yeah, okay, and I'd kind of decipher what he was saying, because he helped. Like he was one of the main helpers helping us set up for the worship event.
Different. Yeah, I think it technically would be considered different dialects.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me the differences. One time when I was in college, let me tell you a story. One time when I was in college, I was sitting in a classroom. It was like a algebra class. First day of class, I sit down and I hear a guy behind me talking. And I'm from Western Arkansas, and I knew some people from a little town called Gurdon, Arkansas, and had spent some time in Gurdon, Arkansas. And I hear this guy talking. I don't see him. I can't evaluate anything about him. I hear his voice, and I turn around and I say, "You're from Gurdon, Arkansas." And he looked at me and he said, "You're exactly right." He was from Gurdon, Arkansas. He had that distinct of an accent from that town.
Yeah.
I knew he was from Gurdon, Arkansas. And like around here in Washington County, we're recording, by the way. Around here in Washington County, I know a farmer over here that I deer hunt on. Very distinct Ozarkian accent. Like he's not been influenced by media, or he's just been influenced by who he is. His accent is very different than Ori Province's accent.
Yeah.
30 miles to the southeast. And Ori was the old man, 91 years old, that we did the podcast on.
Yeah.
Lived out in the mountains, born on the mountain, lived his whole life on the mountain. The furthest east he'd ever been was Little Rock in 91 years. I mean, for those who are listening, that would be like 3 hours. The furthest north he'd ever been was Kansas City, which is about 4 hours. The furthest west he'd ever been was Sand Springs, Texas, which is probably 6 or 7 hours. The furthest south he'd ever been was, I think, Texarkana. And anyway, but his accent was real different than this farmer over here in Prairie Grove. But anyway, just such, I don't understand it. But I started to say the most unique and my favorite rural American accent that I have ever personally witnessed would be a man by the name of Roy Clark in Eastern Tennessee. We did a film about him.
Yeah, I remember watching that
And
one.
even amongst his peers, all the guys over there, I mean, they've all got very distinct accents, but his is like at a whole different level. And you can actually hear the Scotch-Irish roots of the way that he says things and the cadence of his talk. And it's more the cadence. My buddy Daniel Roop, who's been on this podcast before too, knows he's fluent in Mandarin Chinese.
Now Daniel's got that real deep voice, right? Isn't that Daniel's voice?
Maybe. I don't know if it would be considered deep.
Is Daniel your videographer?
No. That's Brent Reeves.
Brent's got a radio voice.
Yeah, Brent's got a good radio
I wish I
voice.
sounded like Brent Reeves.
Yeah.
Saying that.
All of us do.
For sure.
Daniel Roop. Okay, I'm got lots of stories going here. Daniel Roop knows fluent Mandarin Chinese. And Mandarin is a tonal language.
Right.
Do y'all know what that means?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like you could say the same word like we. That word could mean different things if you said we, or we. I mean,
Right.
And so that's what I hear in Roy Clark's accent. Is he's like, we were coming along through there, Clay, and we came up on that bear, and he was coming through there. He just goes up and down and up and down and up and down. And he's just I just could
Sing-songy
sit around
almost.
and just listen to him.
Yeah.
That being said, well, I can't talk about my future podcast plans, but they may or may not involve
No one's listening. You
Eastern
can tell us.
Tennessee.
You can just tell us.
No
It's-
one's
it's-
listening.
It's just us three in this room.
Right. Well, hey, to talk about the subject at hand, I've got with me in the office here Jonathan Webster.
Hey.
You've been on the podcast before.
Yeah,
We did the Why Does Coon Hunting Matter
That's right.
podcast.
January of 2019.
Yeah. Was that this year?
That was this year.
Okay,
Beginning of the year, and now we're closing out the year. 2019 is a good
Bookending it with
that's
J
it.
Webb.
I like
Yeah.
it.
So J Webb's here. And Jonathan, pull your mic just a little bit closer up to your face.
All right. How's
And
that?
then we have Tyrel Denison, also known as Ty Denison.
Yes, sir.
Ty is I'm surprised you hadn't been on the podcast yet, but
I was on when we were at deer camp a couple
that's right.
years ago.
That's right. You were it was kind of a audience. It was
Yeah,
kind of
that
an
was
audience. So you have been on the podcast.
Yeah, and
your
then
content
we did
just
a coon hunt together. The one where we ate coon out in the woods.
Right. So
But that's-
you and the boys were on a vlog with us when
Yeah.
we went out there. So people that might know these guys. But what we're going to talk about is we're talking about barriers to entry for new hunters coming into hunting. That's the topic at hand. And both these guys have different levels of expertise in this area. And
That's
I'm
a
going to
generous
give
term,
you guys.
expertise.
I'm going to give you guys short introductions, and then we're going to get to a little activity that
Yes.
we're going to do. Okay. All right. So Jonathan would have been. Well,
You could just say it nicely. You could just say it's fine.
Well, I mean, you grew up in Florida
Florida, Panhandle, Florida.
and had zero context for hunting.
0% introduction into sportsman life or outdoors. I mean, went camping, but never went hunting, never
Right.
went fishing, nothing.
And it wasn't inside your family culture.
Nope.
Just no context for hunting.
City slicker through and through.
Right.
Really?
And then you moved to Arkansas 10 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And that's when we would have become friends.
Yeah.
About 10 years ago.
Yeah, 10 years ago. And that was my first even introduction to hunting. It was like, oh my gosh, there's even like a trophy head in Clay's living room. Wow, I've never really actually seen that. Although I had seen some trophy animals from some mutual friend we had in Florida. But I mean,
You realize you're using a hot button word there.
oh, am I really?
Yeah.
We're going to talk. So funny.
This is perfect. It's
this
perfect.
is great. I'm so naive. I don't even know that.
That's good. Well, we can talk about that.
Okay.
So that's all the introduction I want
That's
from
it.
you right
Perfect.
now. Okay. But, you've become a hunter.
Yeah.
We have been hunting together. You've taken several very honorable steps towards becoming a hunter that can acquire his own wild meat in a responsible, sustainable, manly,
That's right.
and God-fearing way. Okay.
Yeah.
So Tyrel Denison, we'll get into this more later, but
Yeah.
Ty grew up hunting in Texas, waterfowl hunting, fishing,
Yep. Dove hunting.
Now you never deer hunted till you're up here.
I went deer hunting one time till I moved up here. Yeah.
So you grew up in the South and had some hunting influence, but it wasn't like your dad was a big hunter.
Correct. My dad did not hunt. My dad did not fish. My mom's family all fished. They lived off the sea. They were commercial fishermen,
Right.
owning tackle shops, all that. But my
Yeah.
dad, he was a cowboy from the Panhandle. It just never clicked with him, and he worked so much. He just didn't want to go spend time in the duck blind or out on the water. He just wasn't his thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's stop right here.
Those dogs, I think they add some authenticity.
They definitely
you know?
add authenticity to the ambiance.
We're here
Like,
at Bear Hunting Magazine Global Headquarters.
any dog you hear is obviously a
Working
beast
dog.
of burden,
Yes,
a working dog.
That's right. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keeping the conversation going.
We pivoted.
Briefly, and then we went ahead and
So you have some experience
Right.
in hunting, but when you moved to Arkansas 20 years ago, or close to that, not quite 20 years ago,
Man, it has been a while. It's crazy when you put it that way. But yeah.
you started a family. You've got 2 boys and a little girl, but and our kids are kind of growing up together. And probably it was 10 years ago that you started doing some bow hunting with me, and it was a progression, and it took a while, which came to a climactic point of
A
jubilation.
beautiful 8-point
last year.
of jubilation.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that. So you had a different level of barriers to entry. So Ty has a family, Marriott has a family. Jonathan isn't married.
bachelor.
And so I want to talk about, like, really what are truly the limiting factors inside of hunting.
Yeah.
Not, and I know y'all haven't been indoctrinated with all the common theories because you just probably aren't, you're just, this isn't necessarily your biggest space that you're paying attention to.
Right.
Okay. But before we get into all that, we're going to take a sportsman's quiz.
We both look for the theme song.
Listen, okay, so this quiz is not designed to humiliate anyone.
That doesn't mean it won't, right? It's not designed to.
It truly is not designed to humiliate anyone.
It does just establish our bona fides as not quite hunt sportsmen.
It will establish, okay, in any multiple choice test, there's a level of ability to decipher different, the answer just by how it's worded.
That's true.
So this is an intelligence test.
How good are we as test takers more than anything?
There it
Test takers. But I think some of the questions are like, I'm pitching you a softball. Okay. There's some questions that are going to be hard, some that are going to be not so hard. But most of these questions will give me insight into really how much you know about modern North American hunting.
I like it.
Okay?
Let's do it.
Okay. So here's the challenge is that it's multiple choice. You guys, I know you both personally, inside and outside of this sphere, and I know that you're honest men. You cannot make your guess based upon what the other guy says. Okay?
Okay.
I commit to
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like
you can't just say B because John said B and you don't know the answer.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right.
Can we agree to that?
Yep, we can
I
agree.
agree.
Okay, so here we go. Question number 1. What is the name of a group of bears? A gaggle. B, a cohort. C, a herd. D, a sleuth.
Ooh.
Jonathan Webster, what's your answer?
I'm going to go with sleuth. I have no
D,
idea.
sleuth.
That's my
okay?
guess.
Yeah, I initially went herd, but for some reason I want to say sleuth as well. So
Gaggle's not
Bing,
right.
bing, 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 bing.
all right.
Correct.
All
Both of you
right.
correct.
Yeah.
Wow. The
Okay.
name of a group of bears is called a sleuth or a sloth of bears.
Yeah.
So if you saw like multiple bears together, which would be very rare, bears are typically every answer we're going to kind of give us a little bit of dialogue about it.
Sure.
So, many animals are group animals, herd animals, flock animals, but every single type of animal has a unique name. This is really cool. There are hundreds of names of animals, like a covey of quail, a sleuth of bears, a herd of deer, a flock of geese, a murder of crows.
Murder of crows. What's a coven? Coven is something.
Covey. Well,
No, there's
covey of
coven.
There's a
quail.
coven of wishes.
Not witches, but that's the thing. There's one animal, a group of them is called a coven. And
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
Like witches? I can't remember what it is, though.
So, okay, great. Well, there you go.
All right.
Okay. Number 2. Here's a softball, okay? What country did the descendants of the plot hound come from?
Oh, I know this one, but I
A,
cheated because
Switzerland. B, Poland. C, Germany. D, Austria. Tyrel Denison, you answer first.
Oh man. And I know I've listened to this episode before. I either want to say Germany or Austria. I'm gonna say Germany.
C, Germany. Jonathan Webster, your answer.
I believe Johannes Plot was from C, Germany.
Ding, 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 ding. Correct. Okay. I didn't mention this quiz is also going to let me know how much you guys are listening to the podcast.
Yeah.
There's a few very specific answers. Okay.
So far, everything that I've answered, the knowledge has been from.
Okay. Question number 3. What is the estimated black bear population of North America? A, 150 to 300,000. B, 800,000 to 1 million animals. C, 3 to 4 million animals. D, 400 to 500,000 animals. Again, the estimated population of black bears in North America. Jonathan Webster.
Oh, man. What was the second one? What was B?
Second one was 800,000 to 1 million
That
animals.
seems high. I'm going to go with D, 400 to 500.
Okay, we've got D. Ty Denison.
What was A again?
A is 150 to 300,000.
No, I'm going D as well.
D, Estimated population of black bears in North America is 800,000 to 1 million animals. Okay.
Wow.
Estimated population. Okay. Let's see. I don't have these numbered. I believe this is question number 4. The Arkansas Game and Fish Commission was founded in what year? A, 1947. B, 1890. C, 1964. D, 1915. Tyrel Denison, what's your answer?
I'm going A.
A, 1947. Jonathan Webster.
I'm gonna vary. I'm gonna go with D, 1915.
1915 is the correct answer.
Oh!
Ding, 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 ding. Okay, now that would give some insight into the first 20 years of the 20th century were that was when things started to shift for North American wildlife. And game agencies were established. Before that, I mean, there were effectively no game laws.
Yeah. Well, that was Teddy Roosevelt had a huge hand in that, if I'm not mistaken.
And he would have been president in the early 1900s. And I mean, it was him along with a whole bunch of other people, but it's like this whole thing of wildlife sustainability, conservation, and state agencies were like, hey, we got to regulate what these people do with wildlife. So 1915 was when the Game and Fish became a state agency. But, Ty Denison, it wasn't until the 1940s that they were actually given full legislative power to make and enforce game laws.
Oh.
From 1915 to like 1944, just however it was set up, like basically the Game and Fish Commission, as far as enforcing laws, had very little ability to like pound on a poacher for doing something wrong. So anyway, so they really became really effective after that time.
Well, I have a question, a bonus question.
When
was like Boone and Crockett have come up with kind of a point system?
Well, Boone and Crockett was founded in 1887.
Okay,
I think so. That was the start of all the good stuff that's happened in the last 50 years. Okay. Was kind of in that time, and that was right at the peak of when it was its worst. Big game populations were decimated to the point when almost they didn't think that they were going to ever come back. And that's so that late 1800s, but it takes 20, 30 years, 50 years for stuff to really systemically change. Okay. All right. Number 6, the Lacey Act law is a law that A, regulates antler sales in the lower 48 states. B, regulates the sale of wild-caught native North American fish into international markets. C, prohibits trade in wildlife, fish, and plants that have been illegally taken, possessed, transported, or sold. D, Native American tribal law that regulates lace garments made from the hide of wild sheep. Jonathan Webster, what's your answer?
I have never heard of this in any way, but those were such specific answers. I'm going to say all of them. Can I say
all?
I say
you cannot. That
option
is
number
wrong.
5? All that is wrong. I've never heard of this at all. I have no idea.
You have no idea. You don't even want to take a guess based upon.
Okay, I'd say
the cadence of my voice as I spoke.
Oh man, tonal languages would have helped me a lot here.
We'll come back to you, Ty Denison.
I want to say B or C. I also have not heard of this. I would say C.
Ding, 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 ding. C.
Yeah,
prohibits trade of wildlife, fish, and plants that have been illegally taken, possessed, transported, or sold. So basically, the Lacey Act, the main thing that it's enforced for is if you killed a deer illegally in Arkansas and you took it to Oklahoma, all of a sudden you've stepped into federal regulations.
Yeah, so if you poach
transporting illegal wildlife. Yeah, so it's basically a way for them to get you, and it's good. So if you killed a bear illegally in Canada and brought it back to wherever, you wouldn't have just broke the game laws of a province, but you would now have committed a federal crime of transporting illegal. And there's also stuff with plants and wildlife.
I got really excited because I watched an episode of Texas Game Warden. There's a TV show called Texas Game Wardens. I think, it's about Texas Game Warden. I don't know if that's the name. But in that episode, they rolled up on a dude that had poached in Montana and brought his game back to Texas. And they rolled up and arrested him. And I was like, what is happening? That's a game warden. And they're just
Lacey Act violation.
They hit him with everything.
Yes.
Did
Did you know that wildlife officers have more authority than most regular law enforcement officers in terms of they don't need search warrants?
Really?
That like a
realize
game
that.
warden could pull up to your house and without a search warrant come in and search your freezers, confiscate your stuff without you doesn't even have to have a warrant. And I think it's because wildlife can't speak. I mean, they're trying to give protection to something that doesn't have a way to be protected, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Several more questions here, guys. Are you okay?
Yeah, we're good.
Is this wearing you out emotionally?
No, I'm realizing that the knowledge of hunting, if this is common knowledge in the hunting world, the level of knowledge is much deeper and more technical than I thought it'd be.
Okay.
Like that's my question that maybe I'll ask at the end is like, does everybody but us know that stuff?
Right,
So
right.
that's good.
No, I don't know. I don't know. A lot of this would be common, but some of it may not be. Some of it's pretty specific, but yeah. Number 7. I don't know what number we're on. The gestation period of a female black bear is how many days? A, 60. B, 122. C, 78. D, 182 days. Gestation period of a female black bear. Jonathan.
I'm going to say 182 days.
182. Ty.
71.
Both of you wrong. Gestation period of a black bear is 60 days.
Really?
Which is really short.
Wow.
And it's because of delayed implantation. A female bear is bred. The fertilized egg doesn't attach to the uterine wall until late in the fall when her body's been able to decide whether she's able to rear cubs or not.
Huh.
So it doesn't decide that until after the fall mass crop has been ingested and the body's like, yeah, man, we're in pretty good shape. I think we can rear a couple of cubs. Bam, the fertilized egg then attaches to the uterine wall, catalyzing gestation for 60 days, and the young cub is born in the den, hairless, and weighs less than a pound.
Wow.
Masterful.
I had no
Masterful. Yeah. Gestation period. So usually big animals have a longer gestation period.
Yeah, that's
right?
why I would have thought
Yeah,
the
yeah,
longest
it's a trick.
option
It's kind of a
available.
trick question.
Nice.
Okay, number 8. On this podcast, we often reference certain sports in derogatory ways. Which of these is not one we talk about? Do you understand the question?
Which of the following sports is not a sport that you discuss?
That we speak negatively on this podcast about.
Wait, that you do speak negatively? You never speak negatively.
Let me reread the question. All right. On this podcast, we often reference certain sports in derogatory ways.
Yes.
Which of these is not one that we speak negatively about?
Before you even offer the answers, as a fan of soccer, I feel like I need to walk out on this podcast. I'm just going to
Be
say
careful.
it, right?
Be careful. Be careful. A, golf. B, tennis. C, badminton. Jonathan Webster, what's
Those
your
are the
answer?
only options?
Yeah.
Wow, I thought basketball was going to be the answer here. Oh, I'm saying badminton. I think
Okay.
you're a badminton fool.
Okay, so we do not speak negatively about that.
That's what I think.
Okay, Ty, your answer.
Golf.
We got Jonathan Webster is right. You are wrong, Ty Denison.
Ooh.
We
Okay.
speak very negatively about golf on this podcast.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I'm behind then.
okay. Yeah. Yep. It's yep. And I also often use tennis as an analogy because we're always talking about hunting,
Right.
And I'm like, there's bad apples in hunting, and then like once like every other podcast I go, but there's bad apples in tennis.
Yeah.
And so okay, all right, just
Wow.
good job, Jonathan.
All right.
I'm
All right.
sorry.
Good job, Jonathan.
You're into badminton, aren't you? I think
Okay.
I've seen you cut a rug on badminton before, yeah?
I don't know. I don't
No?
think so.
Really?
I don't think so.
Okay,
I don't
okay.
think so, buddy. How long has Bear Hunting Magazine been in print? A, 17 years. B, 12 years. C, 23 years. D, 20 years.
You ask him first.
Ty,
23.
23 years. Jonathan.
I was going to say 23 or 20. I'm going to go with 23.
Bear Hunting Magazine's been in print for 20 years. It's on the cover of Bear Hunting Magazine.
Awkward.
We're the Bear Hunting Authority for 20 years.
Awkward.
Okay. All right. It's okay, guys. Okay. We're gonna move along here. We're going to move along. We've got, let's see. We're going to go 3 more questions, and these get harder as we go.
Good.
Okay. And then we'll move on.
I was worried.
Okay. In a previous podcast, we mentioned a short story titled The Big Bears of Arkansas. And a character by the name of Jim Doggett referred to the bear he was pursuing with hounds as. Do you understand the question? Mm-hmm. He referred to the bear that he was pursuing with hounds as A, Old Ephraim, B, a savage beast, C, a brother, D, a father. Jonathan Webster.
I feel like I should take the 5th here, but I'm going to go with a brother.
Brother.
All right.
Okay, Ty?
I like Old Ephraim.
Old Ephraim is a good one.
Okay. Ty Denison is wrong. Jonathan Webster is correct.
Oh, man.
Jim Doggett, as he saw the hounds pursuing a bear up the hill, he said that he loved the bear like a brother. Jim Doggett, Big Bears of Arkansas. Okay. That was mentioned on the last podcast. Noted, Ty. Okay.
To be fair, I totally guessed.
I feel very exposed right now.
Oh, man. Okay.
Bear Hunting Magazine
We
listeners,
may do
y'all
2
need
more
to-
questions. We've been going at this a long time, but it's kind of fun. What was one of the factors that aided in the success of the historic reintroduction of Arkansas black bears between 1954 and 1964? Okay, one of the factors. A, multiple years of historic acorn and hickory nut production because of exceptionally wet summers and mild springs. B, the public hanging of an entire family of notorious Ozark poachers, causing widespread respect of game laws across the region.
I wish it was
That's
that
savage.
C, the introduction of a non-native plant species that aided in the fertility of female black bears, causing them to have large litters of cubs. D, the regrowth and maturity of the oak hickory climax forest after historic landscape level logging at the turn of the century. Jonathan Webster, your answer.
Okay, I think it has to do with acorns. And now the question is whether or not it's A or D, and I'm going to say A.
Okay, A, multiple years of historic acorn and hickory nut production. Ty Denison.
I'm going D.
D is correct.
Ooh, yes. Nice.
All right, the regrowth. Yeah, so the late 1800s, early 1900s, basically everything in the southeastern United States was logged. So the decimation of black bears in the South and here specifically was from market hunting, which guys were killing bears to make money. Number 2, it was massive loss of habitat. And so they instituted the national forest, which preserved forests and put them into regimented forestry management. And so after basically 60, 70 years, these forests were mature again. And all of a sudden, there was good habitat for bears. So that timing between 1954 and 64, they were turning these bears into these mature forests, which is what they needed. It's pretty interesting, huh?
So reintroducing means they actually took captive black bears and reintroduced them physically to forests that
Absolutely.
were grown up.
Yeah. The reintroduction of Arkansas black bears is considered the most successful reintroduction of large carnivores in the world. So they captured them live up in Minnesota and Canada and brought them into Arkansas and turn them loose.
I've heard you say that a number of times, and I never caught that reintroduction was a physical reintroduction. I thought it was like bringing them back from the brink.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay. I've got a few more questions, but I think we'll call it good. Good job, guys.
Yeah.
Good
Well
job.
done.
Round of
Well done,
applause.
competitor. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, shake hands.
Yeah. There we
shake
go.
hands.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Good game.
I'm not sure who won. I wasn't keeping
That's
tabs.
Jonathan.
Clearly.
Clearly, it's Jonathan.
Okay. Okay. Barriers to entry.
Barriers to entry.
What?
One of the largest barriers to entry is I just made barriers to entry a pun in my head. So Bear Hunting Magazine, barriers to entry.
Oh,
That's good.
That was a
that's
really bad
good.
joke and shows that I'm not worthy to.
Barriers to entry. That's
Future
good.
editor right here.
Yeah. But we're going to name the podcast that.
There we go.
Barriers to
Man,
entry.
that's
Good
good
job,
stuff.
Ty Denison. No, so right now inside of the hunting community, there really are kind of three main things that stand in the way of modern hunting continuing as is into the future. Three main things. And, there's kind of been alarmist people that would have been labeled as alarmist maybe for years that would have said, hunting's in trouble, they're after hunting. And I would have seen those guys as people that were just that alarmist. Like, man, there's nobody knocking on my door trying to get me to not hunt. But I also live in a very rural state, a state that's very pro-hunting. Now that I'm older, now that I have sight of the national scene, specifically with bear hunting, but it's much broader and wider than that, I realize that we are very much so at a crux, at a point in time where things are going to go one way or another. It really is. I mean, it's like, for such a time as this, here we are, and hunting is in the balance. And one question might be, why do we need to care that hunting persists? Like Jonathan, I look at you, and it's like you don't have a lot of history with hunting,
right?
So, on your scale in your life of what Jonathan Webster's going to do to make sure modern hunting persists, it's probably like really low. Mm-hmm. It would surprise me if it was, because you just started, so it's like you don't have this. Ties would be a little bit bigger, but mine, I've hunted my whole life. It's a big part of who I am, what I do, and the way I've chosen to live my family. It's a lifestyle. It's like I feel like we're like a people group almost. And so for me to think of my sons, and I always boil it down to this image in my mind. I envision a specific place in Arkansas, public land, that I love to hunt. When I go there, I am giddy with thankfulness that place is mine, and I can go there and I can kill a bear, I can kill a deer, I can go squirrel hunting, and it's mine. And there's a real sense of freedom when I'm standing there going into that place. And the thought of my son or daughter, when they're 40 years old, to not have those same rights makes me feel like that they would be something different than me. Mm-hmm. And that's like, I want them to have that. I don't want the culture to shift so much that in 40 years that hunters are absolute barbarians and outdated and irrelevant in view of the modern hunting culture.
Right.
In view of modern society.
Right.
Which that's the direction it's going. That's the way I'm hogging the.
No,
were you going to say something?
Yeah, as a layman, who doesn't have a lot of visibility of the hunting and outdoor world, that surprised me when I heard you talking about that, because in my view, I just had no sight of the fact that there's a cultural shift towards making hunting a more and more fringe activity. I was not, when you talked to me in January, and people can go listen to Why Coon Hunting Matters, that was a kind of a revelational experience for me about what society might do. Maybe it wasn't even on the podcast. Maybe it was after we wrapped and we talked, and you told me just about how society is shifting and how hound hunting is being delegated to a more fringe position. That was the first time I'd ever even thought about the fact that hunting is being moved to the outskirts, and not just on a philosophical level, but I think this year, I can't remember when, I heard a story that your grandfather used to hound hunt. What was he hound hunting? And
he was quail hunting.
Quail hunting.
Yeah.
And then there's no more, you can't do that anymore, right?
Well, there's hardly any quail left.
And there was a massive shift. And that was a surprise to me as well. I never knew that had happened. Right. And so I had heard you talk about, I guess, a fear that things would change and that your kids wouldn't be able to hunt like you had hunted. And so two things happened. One, you opened my eyes to that there is a cultural shift happening that was invisible to me as just a layman. Yeah. And two, that you had a personal experience of your grandfather who used to actually be able to hunt a specific animal that was native to the area and no longer can because of whatever environmental reasons that caused it. And that kind of brought it home to, like, it's not just this,
and
like,
it killed the culture.
Yeah, it's not a fringe fear. Like, it has happened, and if you don't manage it, it could happen again with other species. I didn't realize either of those things until this year.
Yeah. Well, so the three things that are a threat, and I started to tell my story to tell the three things that are a threat. Hunter recruitment, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Like hunter recruitment. Like I read a statistic that they believe that there are 11.5 million hunters in the U.S. today, and that hunter would include both of you guys because you're licensed hunters now. So, I mean, that would include people that are really into it and then people that are just getting into it, people that are bird hunters, squirrel hunters, deer hunters, elk hunters, bear hunters, whatever. But because of the expanding population of the U.S., that 11.4% is now like 4.5% of the nation, which we used to say that hunters were 10% of America. Like there was like 13 to 15 million of us, and we were 10%. I can't remember the stats, but basically the idea was that about 1 in 10 people were hunters. Okay, so but hunter recruitment, and Ty, you're an IT guy. It just seems like society is moving further and further. Well, I mean, like kids, hunter recruitment. It's like, man, there's a lot for them to do.
Yeah.
There's it is so appealing. I mean, it's like emotional junk food, life junk food to be able to stay home and watch movies on Netflix and play on your phone. I mean, that's a challenge to say, hey, do you want to go out into the cold for a long period of time without comforts, experience a little bit of difficulty, but have the opportunity for a very lasting, meaningful memory and acquisition of wild game that we can come and, or do you want to just stay home and watch Netflix? I mean, that is the thing that people deal with, or just the busyness of life. But
I think those are definitely like key factors, because busyness of life, and we'll get into like what's like barriers. Busyness of life in a society that makes us so busy all the time in a ways that it didn't necessarily before, or less so.
Right.
Like that's a big one.
Yeah. So yeah, I think modern society, and even with the advent of social media, has opened up our options so much in every way. I mean, used to, we didn't know what the other guy was doing. We didn't know what the other family was doing unless we read magazines, newspapers, saw it on television, or talked to somebody on a telephone. And like, so now it's like you like, just people have so many options, exponentially more options for what to do with their life, whether they stay home or read a book or go bowling or go with friends or do this or do this or do this or do this. Where used to, there were less options. I mean, like for a rural family that was hunting or something. But, okay, so hunter recruitment, I keep getting off track. Hunter recruitment, loss of access. And both of you, whether you know it or not, have experienced issues with access to hunting land.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And number 3, anti-hunting sentiment. I would say those 3 things are the biggest challenges to modern hunting. Hunter recruitment, loss of access, and anti-hunting sentiment. And all those play in different places, but those are the biggest things. So let's first talk about, maybe talk about why you started hunting, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Like what was it to go from urban to, like, what appealed to you? Why did you want to start hunting?
Sure. I mean, I think it started real basically as like, yeah, that kind of seems like a manly thing to do. Like, just real, honestly, just being real transparent. It's like, yeah, I've never done that before, but it seems like the men I respect have hunted before, and kind of honorable, I guess. Yeah, something honorable. But I'll tell you what clicked for me. So like those were kind of the initial feelings, and it was like, yeah, there's a desire.
So do you think
to
you
hunt.
felt it was honorable because you've heard me talk about that?
Absolutely.
Because we're pretty close friends.
Absolutely. It's because of the people that did hunt that set the context for me. I could see how that would have gone a different way.
If you had been in a different context, you probably would you have found hunting?
There's if I had not had hunting friends, I absolutely would not have found hunting. I think by myself, it would never have been like a desire. It would have been like a curiosity, honestly.
Yeah.
But with the friends that I've had who are hunters, they set a context. Watching them made me think like, I'd like to try that.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that that's right. And I think that also sets kind of for the listener to think about their people in their life and their circle, like the way that they portray hunting has an impact, because that's what attracted to me. That's what made me attracted to it. Yeah. But that was what got a passing interest in it. And the thing that like clicked for me and I thought I have to do this is when Clay, you said, yeah, I'll show you how to hunt and equip you, give you some info so that you could maybe become, a once a year hunter, just a casual hunter. That's excellent. And you might be able to take something from field to table. And it was like, oh my gosh, I want to do that. I really want that experience to be able to say like, I harvested this game and I brought it to the table. And like, that sounds like a very rewarding
That was the
experience.
point.
Yeah, but definitely.
Yeah. That's good. Ty, so we already established that you had some background in hunting.
Yeah.
What was it that made you want to get more into big game hunting?
Well, the culture around here is towards deer hunting more than anything. And I had put down hunting for a while. I'd put down a lot of stuff, just kind of when I went to college and kind of pursued music for a career for a little while. When I restricted my priorities and got married and started having a family and really kind of got to like sit and consider what did I value when I wasn't just like trying to hit like and move forward on what I was currently focused on, and step back and saw like the things from my past that I really loved that I could connect with still here. Hunting was one of them. Being outdoors. I'm a huge outdoors guy. I love camping. I love hiking. I go trail running.
Ty's an ultra runner.
Mm-hmm.
He runs like 50 miles.
Yep.
When no one pursues him.
That was good.
The only way I'd run that far is if I was running from the law.
Running from a bear.
No, that's awesome. I
Yeah.
have a ton of respect for you for that.
So I love being outdoors. And to me, like one of the most gratifying things is to be outdoors in that setting and to hunt or fish. And so like taking game. And so to me, like that, to me, it's silly that people would want to run ultras or go camping and then not value going hunting. It's like you're missing a piece of being outdoors if you're not taking it.
That's
like,
interesting.
It's like at least learn how to forage. At least
So you
live off the land.
You
some.
feel like your running is like an immersion into the outdoors.
Absolutely.
And
Like
you see that connected to hunting.
I do personally.
I like it.
People
like
that run ultras and don't hunt or fish or forage. Like there's an aspect of being out in that intense situation, but you can't even fully appreciate it because there's a whole aspect of being in the woods and being back in that kind of context that they're just missing out on. And then they'll go back and this is where I'll jab at my ultra running community, and then they'll go back and be vegan and be like, "Oh, that was a great 100-mile run to the woods. I'm gonna finish it off with some soy milk."
So the ultra run would kind of be a throwback to like paleo man.
Absolutely.
That had to cover long distances at different times.
Yeah, ultra runners, like there's kind of two
I never
classes.
made that connection really.
There's kind of two classes of ultra runners. There's like the ultra runner that's the elite athlete that's like trying to be fast, and those guys are like science and super athletic focus and all of those stuff. And then there's everybody else, and everybody else in the ultra running community is kind of and this is going to sound dumb because I'm talking about people running 50 to 100, anything over a normal marathon, an ultra marathon. So 30 miles, 50 miles, 100 miles.
I see.
In the woods, 9 times out of 10. Those are just Joe average people that are willing to go gut it out in the woods for half a day or a day. They're not doing it super fast. They're not running the whole time.
Yeah.
There's a whole like swath of people that's what they do, and they're not like elite athletes. They're just Joe average folks that go get out in the woods and push their boundaries in those ways.
Yeah.
And that was the part of the appeal for me that pulled me into it. And I've worked to get faster at it. But that appeal is the same thing that makes me love being out hunting and fishing and living off the land and camping. And so it's just this whole package of just like going away from modern trappings and ease and going and doing things like that are gratifying and require troubleshooting, require skill, require patience, require this whole host of things that I don't exercise as a software developer or as somebody sitting around watching Netflix. And so it sharpens those parts of me that I value and I love that I don't get sharpened in my everyday life.
Yeah. That's good.
So that and I got into wanted to deer hunt because deer hunting is what we do here in Northwest Arkansas. I was waterfowl hunting in South Texas because nobody really deer hunted, and everybody who did talked about going to Arkansas to hunt. And there's some good deer hunting in Texas. Don't get me wrong.
But where you were at, there wasn't necessarily.
Where I was at, there wasn't a whole lot.
No public land either.
Not much, if any. And you'd go on a deer lease down in like scrub brush, like mesquite country, and hunt there. But the public land was readily available for waterfowl and dove.
Yeah.
You just go out into the flats, which is like the Bay area, and there were duck blinds everywhere. And you know, as long as it wasn't locked, and there was a big sign that said "Get off my duck blind," you just roll into a random duck blind and throw your decoys out and hunt there. Or you don't even have to have a duck blind; just chill in the reeds and throw out your decoys and call them in and hunt.
Yeah. So when you started deer hunting, though, I know a big part of it was to get meat.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love eating wild game. And I miss that. And that's that field to table aspect of it. Like I wouldn't. Eating what I kill is super gratifying for sure.
Yeah, and your family loves it. Now Sarah didn't grow up eating wild game. Your wife, she didn't grow up eating wild game, but she
loves it.
She loves cooking it now. It's healthy, she's everything about it.
Frustrated that I did not get a deer this year. And
it's not over yet.
Yeah,
we got the
modern gun's over. But
Until
there's
Christmas.
also it'll open back up at Christmas.
Yeah.
I'll try and get out there then.
Is that when?
That's what I'm going to try and go again.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
we're gonna take him on Christmas. You ought to come.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
For real, we ought to.
Yeah,
But
that's good.
You
Go ahead, John.
No, just to jump off of one of the first points Ty said, I didn't even realize it's something that impacted me as well, and I wouldn't have even been able to articulate this until Ty talked about getting out in nature. A couple of years ago, we started having a local film festival called the Banff Mountain Film Festival. The films from Banff, Canada that came out here, and they showed definitely no hunting films, but they were films about outdoors and outdoor life, and it was really beautiful. Totally outside of anything I had ever experienced before, and I do connect to that as like that also made me more interested in getting out in nature and thinking about hunting. Like that had a connection. So just a jumping off point of like, getting outside and connecting with nature definitely planted some seeds.
And those folks don't make sense to me. I love the outdoor community of all aspects, but the people that are huge outdoors folks but don't connect to hunting and just like that, there's a huge disconnect there. Like how do you not, like, I understand seeing the beauty of an animal, but that doesn't mean that like I can't take that animal and eat it and like be all weird and be like, circle of life, brother. Like you're not a part of the circle of life when you're eating.
They would be saying about us right now if they were if rock climbers and they might be saying, man, I understand guys wanting to get out, but I don't understand killing an animal.
Yeah.
Like they would have that same barrier because I'm exactly the same. We all are. People that listen, people that want to hunt and get hunting. They see an animal and they want to interact with that animal more than just look at it and take a picture of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's so fundamentally human.
Yeah.
That's why it's so bizarre, absolutely bizarre, that culturally the planet is shifting into this place of, hunting is irrelevant. These are barbarians. These are murderers. Do you know that about once every 3 weeks, I'll say, I give the definition of murder to a commenter on our YouTube channel that I respond to some YouTube comments where they say, brave. You murderer. And I come back on them I say, thank you so much for your insightful comment. The actual definition of murder is, and it involves like contemplation of killing a human. Yeah. And I'm like, this is not murder. And I don't do that a lot. I'm afraid to tell people that. Colby, cut this from the podcast. People think I'm crazy if they see I'm talking to my YouTube commenters but no. Point being, it's bizarre. It's bizarre that this idea of killing an animal, using it for meat, using it for wildlife-related commodities is a negative thing. Bizarre.
Maybe this. You go ahead.
No, well, I was going to say, like, and that societal gatekeeping is kind of a barrier. So I'll point this out. Yeah, I'll point this out. People won't know this. Obviously, Clay and the Bear Hunting Magazine team just came out with these awesome new hats and everything with the bear dog, bear grease, flashy mule, those patches. Like, completely unrelated. Jonathan and I both rolled in with a flashy mule hat on.
Yes, sir.
I wear it when I run now. I love the hat. Jonathan's got his on. You'll notice we didn't get, and I'll speak it for myself, but I'm pretty confident that Jonathan will come along with me here. Didn't get bear dog, didn't get bear grease. I've never been on a bear hunt. I don't want anybody looking at that hat and asking me about it and me not being able to identify totally, because either A, there's somebody who's going to be like, well, what are you doing wearing that hat? You're not a bear hunter.
Right.
From one side of the hunters who would do that. And then on the other side, the folks who would ask that and not have the contacts and not be an advocate of hunting. And so it's just like this is the Switzerland of your merch right here. Flashy Mule is Switzerland
of your merch.
Of your merch, and it's one thing. And it's one thing that's kept me. I've subscribed on and off and gotten the DVDs and stuff. But as far as like merchandising that I wear, and I've actually talked about it. Like it's kept me from buying it because I'm just like, man, I've never. I mean, the moment I go on a bear hunt, like one. I can be like, all right, I can buy all the stuff with bear hunting on it now. I have been in the woods trying to hunt a bear. But until then, like there's a barrier there that I just don't feel comfortable
crossing. So you
crossing.
feel a little bit of that social barrier.
Absolutely.
Of somebody being negative
Yeah,
about
either
it.
somebody saying you're not a bear hunter because you've never bear hunted, and so you're not one of us, or you're not a bear hunter, and why are you posing like a bear hunter? The hunters are dumb anyway. Like, so from both sides of it. There's like, and obviously not within our social group, like directly,
right?
But like on the outside of that, like there's some of that there. Yeah. That doesn't keep me from bear hunting, but that keeps me from having a bear hunting sticker on the back of my truck.
Sure, that makes sense. Well, what would you guys say would be the biggest barriers to entry? I mean, just to jump into like what would be the things that would keep someone from doing what you've done? Because I think both of you would have probably. It seems like, having a friend that was big into hunting.
Absolutely.
And it was a help. But what, Jonathan? I know you have notes.
Yeah.
What
I made a
barriers
list.
to entry? Talk to me.
I made a list. Okay, I'll just run over these really quick. But like the very first thing, which I think is the biggest one, was like, where do you even start? I had never hunted. I owned a shotgun that I won in a raffle, but I had no other firearms.
That's right.
I did. I won a shotgun in a raffle. I'm a lucky skunk. But even if I had owned a rifle, like I don't even know where to start. I mean, public land, I didn't even know what you could or couldn't do in terms of with game wardens and stuff. Yeah, I went to a hunter's education course, but like even when we went hunting, I even had to clarify, like, okay, if I do get a deer, I'm not supposed to move it until I put something on it, right? And take a picture of it. Or like, I just didn't even know. And yeah, you could Google a lot of that, but in a very practical sense.
All that stuff is learned very quickly in just a minimal amount of exposure.
Yes.
Inside of hunting.
Socially.
Yes.
It's transmitted socially.
Yeah, there's not a single website that you're going to go to that's going to answer all your unique questions about hunting.
Exactly.
It's almost like you have to go. And once you go, you get it.
Yeah.
You realize that tagging an animal is not really that hard of a thing. It may seem like it. I mean, like, it was surprising some of the questions Jonathan asked me when we hunted the other day. He was like, one of them was about tagging the deer. And I mean, I didn't even think about that. I mean, because obviously we were going to tag the deer correctly, and he wasn't even going to need to worry about it. Like, I didn't even think about, if you kill a deer, don't move it. Tag, like, maybe we should have gone over that, but to me it was just a non-issue. We were going to do it.
If I got one, I was going to come get you.
Yeah, you were going to. But you weren't going to be dragging it out by yourself.
No, but it was still an unknown to me. Like, and I feel like there are so many things about hunting that are just unknowns that you have to. You need to get a social connection to know them, because there's not it's not very Googleable. I guess it really is aspects of this world that's transmitted through people. So I didn't even know where to start. I didn't know, I know that there's public lands, but I don't know what you can do on them. And it's information you could research and find out, but I just didn't have a context socially to understand that stuff. So that was like the biggest
What else
one.
is on your list?
Okay, so not just basic knowledge.
Well,
Another one.
real
Go
quick. Just that without that knowledge, with hunting specifically, there's a lot of like problems that you can have because like the law, like it's game warden, and
Right.
then like firearm safety, things like that. It's not like I don't have knowledge. I'll
It's kind
Google
of a
it.
high
I'll watch a
stakes.
YouTube video. Yeah, it's very high stakes.
Yeah.
Your
I
ignorance
never
can
really
get you in
thought
a
about
lot of
that.
trouble.
Yeah, it's pretty. It is high stakes. It's not like going to It's not like going to play disc golf. We're adding
it to the
We're
list.
adding a new one to it. It's not like disc golf where you go out and whether you know the rules or not,
Right.
it's not that big of consequences. But
Yep.
you're carrying a firearm. You're hunting something that if you got it wrong, you could experience stiff penalties from the law. I see how there would be like scary, maybe.
Yeah, I just want to throw that in there.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's
the
good.
ignorance comes with big consequences that
Absolutely.
you can't like just kind of tell the game warden like, "Oh, this is my first time, officer,"
didn't know
and then
that.
just be
It's
like,
like, "Ah."
"Oh, well, brother, you should have watched this YouTube video before you came out here. Hold on, I'll send it to you."
Yeah.
So
No, that's a very real consideration. I think a lot of the rest of my list that are really practical, like gun season versus bow season. Like I own a shotgun. I can go hunting with a shotgun. You help me figure that out. But it's a very small window. And so I have to kind of bend my life a little bit around this small window. And do I want to get a bow? Do I want to pick that up? That requires more practice and more information and I guess a deeper commitment. So that was another thing. Another thing is these three things I think are pretty funny. Like land to go on. I don't have connections of people who are landowners who would let me go. I guess I could go on public land, but we've already talked about that. This one's really funny, but it's a very real consideration. And I thought about it even after we went hunting and I didn't get anything. I thought I could go again by myself. And then I thought of this one thing, a vehicle. I drive a Ford Focus. I drive a Ford Focus. How am I going to get a deer if I get a deer to a processor or
Good question.
attempt to process it myself? I don't own a deep freezer. Like, I guess I could go get one, but like, there's just these multiple
be the happiest
little
man buying a deep freezer at a Sam's Club right there.
It's just like multiple little
I never
barriers.
that's great because I've never thought of that in my life. That a barrier to entry would be I've got a car and I can't haul what I kill back very easily.
Yeah.
Now, let me inform you that you can. You can put that sucker right on the top. Bring you 2 ratchet straps. Open the doors. Put him right on top. Ratchet strap inside the car, around the open doors, over the top. You can
Surely,
wrap it in a tarp.
there is a YouTube video that will show me how to do that.
Taurus you'll ever see.
Hey, this is John Smith. Want to show you how to tie a deer to the top of your Ford Focus. Here we go.
Well, no, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Well, let me just pivot right to top.
Yeah.
Barriers to entry.
Barriers
What are
to
they? I
entry.
mean, if you even could be concise, kind of
Sure.
like this.
So
like
for
your
me,
thoughts.
Time is one of them.
Time.
Deer hunting especially takes time.
Yes.
And I think a lot of the barriers for me will kind of be specific to deer hunting.
Yeah.
But deer hunting is largely autonomous. Like I grew up, dove and duck hunting, which is fairly social. Deer hunting, you might go with some guys to deer camp, but then you just go disappear to your stand, and you're like deliberately real far from folks. And so, to me, there's a lot of those. All my learning about hunting was done socially through friends and stuff growing up, and like we all went out together in a group, and so you gain all that stuff through that social interaction. With deer hunting being so autonomous, you've got to get up to speed real quick on a bunch of information and then be able to be by yourself.
I see.
And so that
I never thought of it like that.
And so that
Like you're not sitting by your buddy in the blind and he goes, shoot now.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
I
Or
never thought
don't take
about
that shot. That's a bad shot. Like none
Right.
of that.
I never thought about that.
And you that gets transferred to your kids most of the time because you're taking them out there and they are sitting in the blind with you. But I mean,
Exactly.
you don't want to be the guy who's just like, hey Clay, can I sit in a deer
200
stand next to you.
Exactly.
No way, man.
200%
We can share
that.
hot chocolate.
Yeah, exactly.
200%.
Like, you don't want to be that guy, so you're
Yeah.
just like, I've got to get all this information in my brain so I can get up to speed fast
Okay.
and then go get in the deer woods.
Okay.
And that's challenging. And so that was a big one. But getting, I had shotguns, getting my rifle. I haven't bought one yet, so I'm actually using someone else's rifle, though, because the season was so short, and it took me, like, this season was frustrating because it was like, all right, I need to get my rifle. And there was definitely some feet dragging on my end. I had other stuff going on. I had to get the rifle, went out, shot the rifle, make sure it was sighted in, make sure it was good, try and figure out if I was going to try and do public land or not. And around here, public land is almost exclusively bow and muzzle loading. And so it was like, okay. Yeah. And then I had a couple folks, I just like, throughout the year, I'd been kind of putting feelers out for land to hunt so that I wasn't just going to you, Clay, and being my source of hunting land.
Right.
I was like, I want to be autonomous. I want to be able to go hunt on my own. And I had a guy fall through on me like, man, I'd love to let you hunt. I just can't do it this year. Maybe next year. I was like, yeah, you bet. I'm not going to push the matter. And then somebody just ghosted me that was just like, we got this lease out here. You can come hunt it whenever you want. It's like, sure. And I was just like, hey, about that hunting. And it's just like crickets. It's like, okay, cool. I'm just going to leave that alone because it was a former coworker who doesn't work with me anymore, so he's gone. So stuff like that. And then I think this gun season was less than a month for Modern Gun this year.
For sure.
And so
you
those
just
things,
time.
I just couldn't get everything put together. When I finally got the rifle and got it where I needed it, and it was like, okay, got to get the land worked out, and what I thought I had, I didn't have, and so it's like, okay, scramble, and it's just like, honestly, like, I know you've got so much stuff going on, I don't want, and I did eventually, before the season was over, reached out and was just like, talking hunting, but you were already taking a bunch of people, and that's just the aspect of it. Like, you're kind of I'm a ham radio guy too, because I just do all the nerd things, and in the ham radio world, there's what's called an Elmer. And an Elmer is an older ham who's got experience and equipment and all this stuff, and he's just like your guy. He's your mentor. You go to him, and like, at least in our social circle, you're the hunting Elmer. Everybody is just like, if there's a hunting question, you got to go to Clay.
Yeah. I like it.
And so and again, that speaks to that autonomy for deer hunting. I've got no problem saying, Clay, when we going coon hunting? Clay, when we going squirrel hunting? Those are social hunting endeavors.
Right.
But when you take people deer hunting, you're a guide. You're not going hunting. I mean, you probably get to hunt some.
Yeah.
You're dropping people at deer stands
That's right.
and talking to them about this and that.
Yeah.
And anybody you know that's already up to speed is already out in the deer woods without you, because they are autonomous.
Yeah.
So that's probably kind of the biggest barrier for me. Like, it's that combination of the time and the knowledge and getting it all put together. And then, to get more time in the woods, I had to get a bow, shooting a bow, and like investing the time in there. And so that frees up public land for me, but it also requires greater patience and all those things.
Yeah.
And I enjoy bow hunting. I've never taken anything with a bow, but I love just being out in the woods in a deer stand with a bow in my hand. Yeah. But it's less fruitful, I feel.
I think I want to get to, and I got to say this so I don't forget, I want to get to barriers to me not helping people become hunters. Because I think a lot of hunters will relate to what I would say about that, because I'm looking at both of you guys really in some ways kicking myself thinking I didn't do enough. And I'm being honest. I'm not trying to, I'm like, man, I could have helped Jonathan longer. I could have helped Ty more than I have. But I think one of the biggest limiting factors is just time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, especially with you, Ty, with a family and stuff, it's just like everything pulls on our world with time.
For sure.
And I hate it. It's the trend of the age. And most of the time, the trend of the age has stuff inside of it that you have to latch onto to just be a normal human during that period of the world. But there's also some real negative things that it steals from you. You understand what I'm saying? And I mean, in the last, let's say 15 years even, with the advent, it's come with a advent of the internet. I mean, I think it's connected to it, whether it's a direct correlation point, but just this with widespread fast communication, being able to go through all channels of life, it's like we can be way more efficient. We can be way more. There's just way more stuff that we can do that we couldn't do before. It's like, so the internet sped up life so much that there's more opportunity. It opened up communication, so now you know about all these options for your life. I mean, you could be what you can do with your spare time. So there's only so much spare time that any human has, number one. That now, because of communication, he knows he has all these options. And then number two, the culture of North America is to work a ton. Yeah. I mean, our culture compared to other parts of the world is very much so more work-oriented. It's like we work more than anybody else, just about, in terms of time at the office. And that's cultural. It's ingrained. You can't hardly break away from it. And so, I don't know what to say, because the guy's got to make a living. Yep. A guy's does have so much free time. You're not gonna tell your kids you can't play basketball or sports because daddy wants to be a hunter.
Right.
That's a tough one for me.
Yeah.
Because those kids are gonna forget about sports. I mean, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate, but I mean, like, your kids aren't gonna be professional basketball players. They could learn the stuff that you're teaching them in basketball in the hunting woods. I mean, could they? I mean, I'm kind of posing the question, but there's no way that any of us are going to strip our kids of this opportunity to. And I'm using sports as an example because that's what I think about. Because in our family, probably a limiting factor inside of our hunting, which we've eliminated a lot of limiting factors because of my profession and just my passion. Time is a massive limiting factor, and I think as a family, you have to you got to find balance. I mean, like, I don't let my kids play certain sports simply because of time, but we do play other sports that we're like, yep, we're gonna allot some of our free time to this. This is important and valuable, and we're not gonna allot it in other times of the year because we just I want your upbringing to involve hunting, and I don't say it like that to them. But that's effectively part of it. Yeah. And but time being a massive limiting factor is so significant. And everything comes with a cost. Every single thing comes with a cost inside of life. And so it's like, and like I said to you, Jonathan, when you got early on hunting, like, I was like, man, you don't have to be a real serious hunter. You can just hunt. I think I said to you can just hunt 1 weekend a year. Yeah. And that's cool. Buy a hunting license, you're helping conservation. I mean, the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission makes no more off of me than they do you in terms of funding conservation, because buying a hunting license funds conservation. It's big time. So you buying a hunting license is valuable. And if you go hunting 3 days a year, every year, and you look forward to that and you build that into your family culture. That's the thing.
Yeah, I would
like
love
when you
to
get married and have kids, like, it's like, yeah, we deer hunt in November. And that's kind of what you're doing, Ty. Even if there's just that little thing, I think it opens up. And even if you're never have any intention of being a real serious hunter, it's that exposure. My dad, and I always go back, I'm not going to talk about golf. My dad tried to forcefully put golf into my life because I was such a hunter. And he was like, Clay, you need to be well-rounded. You need to be well-rounded. You need to learn how to play golf. And he made us play golf. And I joke about not liking golf because of that, but I respect the game of golf. I don't play. I don't want to play. But kind of even from that same perspective, like with somebody that is not going to be a serious hunter, but your family, your kids, your wife, your world, I think gains value from having a little bit of it inside there.
Yeah.
Because it's a pivot back to something that is way bigger than tennis, golf, or badminton. In that we're humans. Humans are hunters. This is a pretty big pivot, pretty big hat tip back to being a hunter, and that's what I like. And not every family's supposed to do it, but boy, I think it's valuable.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was going to say was I was going to talk about limiting factors to me hunting or taking people hunting, and I'm in a stage right now where I'm trying to find hypocrisies inside of my life, my world. Where do I say one thing but kind of do another? From a functional perspective. And I know for me, the way that I would be better at mentoring new hunters would have to cause me to slow down and be more intentional. And it comes with cost. Like when I take you guys hunting, and this would be the back door of this thing that I would never say to y'all. But like if I take you hunting, like I am sacrificing where I can go because there's only certain places I can take you.
Right.
I can't take you everywhere. There's also certain time limitations. Like if I was going to dedicate a day to hunting, I might go 2 hours away to a region that I hunt. But I know that you're not interested in waking up at 3 a.m. and getting home at midnight, and probably not. I mean, like there's just things. It's like, no, we're just going to go on Saturday afternoon with Jonathan.
See, I am with notice. Like you said that, and I'm just like, I'm in. It's the same thing that makes me go run 100 miles.
Right.
But it's just like, yeah, I'm up at 3 a.m, back at midnight. Like, yeah. But that's
funny. I kind of thought of the same
I'm
thing.
with
But was
it.
like,
Well, maybe I misread you guys. Maybe I misread you guys.
But I could see how that would be a thing for new
for us
hunters.
to communicate that to you, so that you know, like, oh, they would be up for something like that. Like, yeah, man.
Well, okay, now we know.
So,
well,
there just needs to
but
be
just
more.
like there's sacrifice on my part that sometimes maybe I've just not wanted to do. Just other things, I mean, it's like I want to kill a big buck. I want to, do all this. So anyway, so there's a sacrifice. So what it's taken for me is to slow down and to and it really helps me to hear both of your perspectives. Really does, because guys that have hunted their whole life were pretty blind to barriers to entry. And we just are. I think I am. I'm just now at age 40 starting to think about barriers to entry, But anyway, just more sacrificial. Just like, yeah, we're going to go. The other thing is that on private land, you don't always have permission to take people.
Right.
Like both of you guys, I pretty much, after almost 20 years of hunting this one place, both of y'all have hunted there with me. I kind of just have the rapport with that landowner that I can kind of just do what I want, and I don't take advantage of that. But for 15 years, I never took anybody over there. And then finally, I was just like, I'd call him and say, hey, I'm going to bring a buddy. And he'd be like, whatever you want, Clay, it's fine. But I don't think they would have said that 10 years ago.
Right.
But it's like that rapport finally got to that place. And then, so, there's sacrifice in that. And then I take Ty Denison over there, and he kills the biggest buck. It was so classic.
Yeah.
Last year, I took Ty to this place, and just we were just hunting in the afternoon.
Yep.
I put you in like the spot I least expected a big buck to show up in. Really.
Yeah.
Now I did expect you to see a deer. That's why I put you there.
I saw quite a few deer, but yeah.
I mean, I expected you to see deer. That's why it was the doe hole.
Yeah.
And it was during the rut, so I should have known.
Yeah.
But it was right on the edge of a field, and
that's how I got him. He was right.
I just didn't think you were going to see a big buck. And I hear a boom. You hear a text, and Ty says, I think I just killed a proper buck. I think you said, this is like a proper, like a buck.
Yeah, not.
And you really didn't
Not a
know.
little
You
guy.
really didn't have the words to describe how big it was.
Yeah.
And I was like, send me a picture of that thing. And he sent me a picture of it, and I was like, holy smokes. That's probably the biggest deer that we've killed on this farm in 20 years.
It was funny to see your excitement come back, because I was excited, but to hear to see your excitement come back in text form, I was just like, oh, this is a legitimate.
Oh, yeah. For those who are listening, it
on
was
the wall
probably
buck.
a 130 to 135 inch buck. And 8-point heavy horned, for sure, 4.5, 5.5-year-old deer. I mean, and we just don't kill a lot of those over there. So I mean, it was a dandy.
It set the expectation this year when Clay took me out to that same property. I heard that story and was like, oh, here we go. I got to try and get one like Ty did.
Yeah. Here we go. Yeah. And then I hunted with you twice this year, and you saw some deer on the second hunt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But first hunt you said didn't see any deer.
Didn't see a single deer. And so interesting, because I'd never been hunting and that was my first time, I had no idea if I was even just like being too noisy or like moving too much. I like even asked you, I was like, hey, I was like scanning like side to side with my head. Is that moving too much? Did they like see me and like run?
Yeah.
Because you just have I had no baseline of what's reasonable, what will they detect, and I didn't see a single deer, so I wondered,
They saw me.
Yeah, that's totally it. I scared them away.
Yeah.
And so that was funny. And then, the second hunt we went, and I saw some doe way out there. They were just out of range. And then I heard you even describe, like, you got to keep a careful eye because they'll just, like, pop up, and you won't even know where they came from.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. I was looking to the right, came back, looked to the left, and, oh, my gosh, there's a buck right there.
Yeah.
And I never got a good shot. He went off behind me. But, yeah. So I've seen the deer, so I'm going to get one.
Yeah. Well, no, interesting.
And to make a golf analogy, that's like that one day when you hit like a good drive on the golf course that keeps you coming back. Like you'll go play golf all day. I say this to somebody who's not played a ton of golf at all, but like it's so frustrating to be out there playing and not doing well, and then you'll hit one good drive, and you're just like, "Yep, I'm gonna
try that
going
again.
golfing."
Keep going
And it's just like,
enough.
yeah, and I say that as somebody who like spent years going out hunting and not getting anything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You talked about having a respect for actually seeing deer and how you went years without even getting a deer, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you told me a little bit about that. You may even just say a little bit here, but like that was even something that kind of tempered my expectations.
Okay.
So even seeing a deer on my second hunt was good. I had committed to like, hey, I'm going to go. Yeah, I didn't see anything on the first day. I don't care if I don't see anything today. I'm going to like go until I get something.
Yeah.
Like, endure and overcome.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like, that's part of the process. This is okay. It's okay I didn't see anything.
Yeah.
So seeing deer on the second hunt was like a big deal. And you reinforce that. Like, that's not something to take lightly.
You would pick that up socially inside of hunting. Like if you were at a deer camp, like the first, like when we're at deer camp and like you see the lights of the vehicle coming down the hill, coming into camp, and you're out of cell range, so you can't text anybody. I mean, it's like you just can't hardly wait for them to get out of the truck.
Yep.
To hear if they saw something.
Right.
Not even if they killed something, because you don't want to go for the jugular and to be like, "Did you kill something?" Like that guy, you're like, "Hey, sit down. Don't do that." You go. You kind of get out of the truck and you're like, "Did you see anything?" And it's like, "Yeah, I saw something." It's like, I mean, like, yeah, seeing game is like a big thing inside of hunting, and I've talked about it on other podcasts, but just like to value just seeing wildlife is cool, like I mean, yeah.
I know you. I've been to deer camp with you 3 years, and I've never been to a deer camp where a deer's been taken. But we end up talking about what'd you see?
Yeah,
and it's a really exciting time.
Yeah,
and then I didn't realize until, I guess I was listening to the podcast, like what glassing was and like the whole purpose. I mean, obviously the purpose of glassing is to see what's around you, but also like just to enjoy glassing, like just to go glassing. That was something I had no concept of. You don't go glassing for ducks.
right. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So
What is glassing?
Oh, well, let me tell you.
Tell me here.
That's kind of a Western term.
Okay.
That they would use, like just looking for game.
Right.
Binoculars, glass.
Yeah, your binoculars are your glass.
Sure.
And so
Just-
with big open areas, you go glassing. You're looking for
looking
game.
for game.
Hmm.
And
Just to look at
it'd be a hunting technique, glass for game, and then go hunt them.
Hmm.
But yeah. So just seeing game is valuable. So barriers to entry. I'm trying to think of. Is there anything that we haven't? I mean, we've covered all kind of stuff. We've gone on rabbit trails.
You mentioned you wanted to talk about. Well, go ahead.
No, you tell me.
No, you mentioned you wanted to talk about things that we had to overcome, things we didn't like about the hunting community,
Yeah.
or thought that we didn't
Go.
like.
Yeah. So I'll tell the story of my brother. So I have two brothers. Neither one of them really hunt. And just in the last year, I was talking to one of them, and he said that as a kid he was turned off from hunting because of kind of the macho, egotistical persona that he saw in the hunting culture of like his high school. Like he wasn't necessarily talking about, I don't think he was talking about like in the family, but maybe he was like in like our family, like me and my dad. I actually later asked him, I was like, are you saying that like at me? Like not in like a angry sense, but just kind of like, again, I'm in a time when I'm like looking at myself saying, are there holes inside of this thing? And he said he wasn't. He said it was more a statement about in that area that we grew up, the people that were hunters were typically your stereotypical redneck, loud, arrogant, macho, looking for a way to externalize, their macho-ness. Sure. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of news to me. It's my own brother. And I was like, I didn't know that you had that perception. Because, see, I would have been at that time, I hope I wouldn't have been like that, but like that didn't really bother me. I mean, I was like, cool, he killed a big buck. That's awesome. That dude's a good hunter. Like I didn't think, I didn't have negative. So what would be negative things that you would have thought before that maybe you see are different now or negative in general that you still see are negative?
I think of three things. First thing I think of was my general impression of hunters in high school, which were people who lived on the other side of the county. They always dressed in camo. They always had white trucks that they had mud splattered on the side, and you could tell it was like a thing of pride. So you did have
some hunters in your world.
They were on my high school. It's a long story, but I had to travel like 30 miles to my high school.
Okay.
It was almost in a different county. We were worlds away. And so I guess seeing those people, and I was even friends with some of them, but not very closely, it was like I didn't understand the bravado of like, yeah, I get it, man. You hunt, like you wear camo all the time, and your truck always has mud on it, and like you clearly want me to know that. So like as a high schooler, it was like something I just wasn't attracted to.
Okay.
That the bigger thing I think, and I mean that's such a light thing, but it is a real thing that existed. Like,
yeah,
I think the bigger thing would be something that really, just knowing you, Clay, has actually kind of taken care of was a slight bent towards thinking, is hunting cruel? Because of like thinking about like, okay, you shoot a deer and then you let it run and then it bleeds out. And it's like,
right,
is that cruel? And it's like, I just kind of wondered it almost, but I can see. So like you guys are talking about like how you don't understand how people could enjoy the outdoors and then not get hunting. But like, I guess I would have leaned more towards that direction. And I would have empathized with that position or just understood like, yeah, I don't really know what I feel about that, but I feel like that's kind of strange. And talking with you, Clay, has helped me understand like how cruel and like relentless nature is. And when we went coon hunting, you talked to me about like what would be the natural death of a raccoon compared to what happens if we go coon hunting and are successful. And that really just kind of put things in perspective. Like one, of course, animal life is in no way compatible or on the same level as human life, but also just like nature and like circle of life. Like, let's just be real straightforward about this.
Yes.
And the benefit of harvesting game, but like, I guess I would have thought about that stuff, especially in situations where you would hunt and then not like eat the animal. Cause I guess that would be even like,
so you had a problem with that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that would have even been like a far left thing of like, okay, I could get if you hunt and then you eat the animal, but if you just hunt and you're not going to eat the animal, like coon hunting or something.
Yeah.
I never would have understood the environmental picture and the conservation picture. I never understood for a couple of years when you said that hunters are the greatest conservationists. Made zero sense to me. I trusted you, but it didn't make sense to me.
Right.
So that would have been one of the other things I didn't understand.
Yeah, that's good. And so just to clarify, talking about so much of hunting, 99% of hunting is we use the meat we eat. Right. I just want to clarify that.
Yeah.
Predator hunting like coons and coyotes and different things, those are animals that we typically don't eat, and we're hunting them for different reasons. We're hunting them for population control. We're hunting them for fur. We're hunting them for ecological reasons. I mean, like right now, the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission opened up raccoon season year-round on private land to help turkey and quail numbers. I mean, so I just want to clarify that.
Yeah.
Just for anybody that might be listening. It's like there are other reasons to hunt besides meat, but they're very small.
Right.
There's nothing else that we would hunt that would just be like, well, I don't want to say that either. but very few things that would be hunted. Nothing would be. One of the pillars of the North American model of wildlife conservation is non-frivolous use. That's one of the pillars that we don't just kill stuff to kill it. There's a reason. So there we go.
And that was invisible to me.
Okay.
And I would have leaned towards, hunters are just kind of like, they just kind of I would never, actually, I never would have thought this. I would have wondered if it was true, if hunters had bloodlust or something.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I can understand that position from the, I guess, people who take that. But talking with you and like watching you has really just exposed me to subtleties I would not have seen otherwise.
It's a complex thing.
Yeah.
So those were the three?
Well, and then the third one was something that you and I talked about after I was listening to Steve Ranella, not the episode that you went on, but just the attitude of landowners towards anyone who wants to use their land. It has seemed to me to be quite abrasive or even hostile, or it's like you could be talking to a perfectly nice guy about anything in his life, but if you mention his land, it's like people kind of bow up. My impression is that people kind of bow up and they're like very protective. And you and I talked about this, and you kind of laid out for me like, well, historically, misuse of land is like one of the first things that happens, and so people have to protect that kind of stuff. But that never fit with me in terms of like, you could be talking to a nice guy, but if he's a hunter, oh man, don't ask him about his land or don't ask him where he hunts or any of that. It's a hot button topic that I don't understand why people get so edgy about.
I see.
Anyways,
man, I like it. That's such a good, unique perspective. I mean, not unique, but insightful, I think, to hunters that are into the hunting world. Ty, perceptions of hunting.
So that's one of those places where those barriers aren't as extreme for me because of where I grew up and how I grew up.
Yep.
But I can see them, and I think I was thinking about it while Jonathan was talking. I think that, and I used the term earlier, gatekeeping, and it's kind of like an exclusive kind of tendencies that aren't even intentional. It's just barriers that kind of get established in the culture, and this happens with every passionate
golf, tennis,
culture.
badminton.
Exactly.
Cycling.
I was thinking about
disc golf,
cycling,
Razorback football fans. Like people, because when you get to a point where you are so passionate and your identity is so based on your actions, like it overtakes everything and it defines you, and you put it on display. Like people that just roll around and Razorback everything all the time, and it's just like they're on message boards, they're constantly reading this or doing that and talking all about it, and it just consumes them, and it's just like that's a Razorback fan. Same thing with hunters. It's just like, and if I don't have a Browning sticker on the back of my truck, and I don't have a bunch of First Light gear, and like a big truck or trophy mounts in my house or any kind of things like because hunters have become so passionate about hunting, which is both good and a little strange because it's also so much a part of what we consider normal life, and then it became very
eccentric almost, or like to the edge of society.
Yeah, almost like fetishized, I think would be the word. Like it just becomes such an obsession for some people, and they just wear it, and so it feels like I can't step that deep into it. It's either and to hear you speak highly of like someone who goes hunting once a weekend every year, helps tear that down. But you don't get that, except you don't get that from some folks, and then there are some folks that do that are kind of like what I would have traditionally considered kind of the lazy hunter who's just gonna hunt 1 week. He's gonna hunt the opening of deer season. And he's gonna go out there and just like sit in the deer stand that he's had his feet are running in the whole time, and like and it's not wrong to do that. It's just a different kind of like that's the average hunter that goes out and that's that. I'm trying not to be derogatory because I don't. I'm using words that make it sound like I'm looking down on those folks. Those folks hunt more than I do. They keep their freezer stocked more than I do, unfortunately. but I'm not in a place where I can do that. Like, you got to have land for that, to have ease of hunting, to where hunting is just a part of what you do. It's not a part of your identity, but you do it and it's easy and you just have it. Like, I can't step into that.
I see
either.
what you're saying. I see.
And so I can't relate to that either. And so, because people are like, well, man, why didn't you get your deer? Like, I don't.
Let me tell you about all the barriers.
That's a complicated question.
Wow.
Wow, that's really. I think it's
like
really.
I had that. Oh,
But I think it's really insightful what you're saying.
because I had that a lot at. I used to work at Daisy Outdoor Products, the BB gun company, and obviously there's a huge hunting culture there, and there was a ton of hunting armchair quarterbacks, and they had a little bit of land. They had everything set up. It's just like modern gun season. I'm gonna get out my side by side. I'm gonna run out to my deer camp. I'm gonna go out, have a good time, fill my freezer full of deer, tag out, and I'm done. And they're not as overly committed to it, but they have it so easy because of like just having
Just the way they're
invested into it, or like what they were given, or any of those things. It just comes so natural. And so for me, being the guy on the outside with none of that, it's just like, man, why haven't you got any deer? You're not getting any deer? What's going on? And it's just like, man, I'm trying.
It's a little harder for me.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, I think what I hear, or a conclusion that I came to about myself as I'm hearing you talk right there, Ty, is I think that in the outdoor media world, we've talked negatively about the 1 weekend a year hunter. I hear that we talk negatively about that. Because if you're a serious hunter,
Right.
quote unquote, then that guy is kind of not doing things the way you want. You view him as not committed. You might view him as lazy. You view him as not having hunting tactics that are very good. So he's going in and spooking game. And I just realized
almost has an unethical feel to it.
yeah,
And even me on the other side of it. So if I am on the like entry level, and then there's those guys, and then there's the next level of just like super dedicated people. Those people in the middle are kind of like, I don't know. Maybe it's because I want to be one of the purists on the other end. I can even look and be like, I don't like those folks.
What I see is that's a massive like social construct that's bad. Like, I mean, I'm talking about me because I would be on the serious quote unquote side, because what I told you, and again, I'm looking for hypocrisies, and I think that would have been something that just in the last decade I would have thought, Jonathan, that it's like, man, just hunt once a year, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Get you a gun,
Get the skills.
buy some Hunter's Orange.
Yeah.
Learn some of the rules. Take your deer to a processor. You don't even have to learn how to cut it up yourself. That's fine. Just be a once a weekend hunter. That's fine. As long as you know what you are, you're honest about what you are. You're not trying to make it sound like you're something that you're not. Like, I mean, I think that's where the purists get upset, is they would see a guy like that, like, and this is just like jealousy, greed, stupid stuff. Like, see a guy like that kill a big deer, like you did, Ty, and then that guy, and I'm not pointing at you now, strut around like they're some big stud hunter, and then the jealous, serious hunter, it's just stupid.
Sure. Yeah.
Absolute stupidity.
Yeah.
And now in 2020, as we're coming into 2020, now is the time when we have to unify. Like a serious, dedicated hunter that doesn't, I mean, most real serious, dedicated hunters are not good at recruiting new hunters because you're so serious about it. You just don't have space.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to be, it's like a professional basketball player is not probably a very good peewee basketball coach. I mean, like he's during the NBA season, during the peak of his career,
Right.
It's like, I don't have time. I'm traveling to Cleveland to play LeBron James.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's what it feels like. But I have to, and a lot of the guys, there's probably a broad spectrum of people that listen to this podcast, guys that are pretty serious and guys that are pretty new. And it's like we all got to be on the same team.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I like it that you can just go hunt a couple times a year. Just do that. And Ty, you may find a space in between there at some point when you maybe find a deep connection to some hunting land that you have. and you're like, man, every year we can go there. So I'll take the boys out there 3 weekends a year, and we'll kill. Maybe you can take it a notch higher,
Right. And that's the goal.
Yeah, I think that's what you want.
Yeah.
And it's undecided what you want, Jonathan.
Right.
You're new, so the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
You may kill a deer and be like, man, I want to dedicate a lot of my free time in the fall to this. I love it. I want to,
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that typically the serious hunter would look negatively on anybody that wasn't doing it as good as him, and he'd be jealous of the guy that was doing it better.
Yeah.
That's what's got to die, And what and you said the word elitist. I think that describes us, and I'm going to say us as quote unquote the serious hunters pretty well. And I don't know how to remedy that other than just to change it internally. But we're kind of elitist. And boy, you don't want to be around an elitist if you're an amateur.
Very true.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's so true. This year, I got into cycling. I have really been getting into cycling, and I've pushed myself, and I'm a cyclist now. But I am a very amateur cyclist. And there is a guy I know in the cycling community who is what I would call an elitist.
Add it to the list.
No.
Tennis,
This is
golf, badminton,
cycling. No, but this is a good story though. He is able to keep up with group A's on these really impressive communities, and he can just run circles around me. And he made an effort, and he reached out to me and said like, "Hey, I'll take you out sometime. Like, I'll show you some of the routes that I like to go on." And I actually did not pursue him because I was thinking he's he's kind of the elite. I don't want to drag him down. I kind of don't want him to get frustrated at me. And he made an effort, and he actually put me at ease. He said, I think he just picked up on the fact that I was oh, he's way too out of my league here. And he said hey, listen, I can go with one of these communities and ride 20 miles an hour for 4 hours anytime I want, but I don't always want to do that. I want to go on your ride. I want to show you the things that I enjoy. Yeah. And then you might enjoy them too. And I don't care if we go 13 miles an hour. That's your pace. I'll make it my pace. I can go 20 miles an hour if I want to, but I don't want to today. And that really put me at ease and let me receive from him. But he, I think, modeled the kind of thing that you're talking about of somebody who has a foot in the elite who can pour into somebody who's just starting out willingly and not with any sort of resentment or frustration, but pulls them along and says hey, no, I enjoy showing you how to do this as much as I also enjoy going out there and riding 20 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's good.
I think that's key. I see that in the running world too. People going running and wanting to push themselves at tempo or push themselves at distance. They're intimidated. I can't run that far. I can't run that fast. And it's just but I can run less and I can run slower. As the person who is pushing themselves, and it's just further along in the journey is what it really boils down to. I've just been doing it for more time. I can dial that back and bring you along because there's joy in that.
Yeah.
And I think of your dad, Clay, as somebody who you talked about. Somebody who's really busy going hunting all the time doesn't get to hunt, so they're so focused on it they can't help out. Yeah. They don't have time. And you mentioned a really good basketball player wouldn't make a good coach. It's just right. It's a different kind of person to be a good coach. I think of your dad, running those deer camps. Man, he's the host of all hosts, and that's what he's there to do. He's not there to hunt when he's got his deer camp running, and he's invested time into it. Yeah, and he's trying to make sure our hunts go as well as they can. Yeah. And I appreciate about that. It's one of the great things. One of the reasons I enjoy going to deer camp is I know Gary Newcomb can take care of me, man.
Yeah,
and it's gonna
he
be
does.
Good. He does. He is a host, and I know he does hunting on his own too. But he does a good job of kind of switching those.
Yes, he
those
does.
hats in that context.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a good point. Well, I think my eyes have been opened at a new level to kind of because there's all these external things. Humans love an external fix. An external fix is take a new hunter in 2020. Well, you could take a new hunter and feel like you've done your deed.
Yeah.
And you not really give them a legitimate space. It would be like you taking me cycling. Say, I got an extra cycle, come cycle with us. And then you checking off the box, I've introduced Clay to cycling.
And then I take you into somewhere that you would never want to come back.
Yeah, or just not. I don't know. It just takes time. It would take time for you to say, man, cycling is valuable because it's this and it's this, and you get to do this and you get to experience this, and it just opens you up to this socially, and you get to. I mean, it would just take more than just like come with me. Yeah. And I think there's just broader. Well, okay, I was talking about external fix. Really, the fix for hunters in our problem is internal. It's with each one of us. And I'm talking about us being the like established hunting community. I don't even want to break it down, but like the way that I will be a better hunter mentor and help people navigate through barriers is for me to be something a little bit different than I am maybe even right now. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To take the time to really think about the barriers. And you know what? The other thing is that you guys don't know it, but you guys have passed some tests that I have internally for who I invest my time in. You know, I mean, like I was really impressed, Jonathan, that you went and did your hunter's education course and that you got a gun and that you at least kept knocking on the door. Like we had a joke.
Yeah.
Because a couple of times he asked me to go and I say, keep knocking, buddy. Yeah. We're going to make it because you wanted to go and we couldn't. And I said, keep knocking. I said, the way that you get to, that I'll really help you as much as I can is if you just keep asking. Right. Don't ask me one time and then 10 years later say, well, you never took me. I'd be like, you don't really want to go if you ask me one time.
Right.
And I mean, whether that's right or wrong, like I do have a lot of people talk to me about hunting, and I want to invest my energy into someone that's really at least serious enough about it. Mm-hmm. And both of you have done that. Ty, you have for a decade. And I like that. You're never going to wear me out saying I want to go hunting. Yeah. Really. Even actually this year I wondered why you didn't, because you killed a big buck last year. Yeah. I figured you'd be like, when are we going, Clay?
Yeah.
And so you didn't. And now I see that you were trying to be polite. Mm-hmm. And you know,
like, I got to go on my own.
I respect that. I do. And you're right. You know, I mean, for you to really establish what you want, I mean, you kind of are going to have to find a place. Not that you can't come hunt with me. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But, you know,
yeah,
that's what it does take some initiative. There's several young gentlemen that I know right now that I've said, get your hunter's education card. I will buy your hunting license. And I will mentor you in hunting. And it's been a long time, and they still hadn't done it. And so it's kind of like, I don't know. You know, and they have their own unique challenges. So I'm not dogging them. But there's a step that they have to take, you know. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so there's a cost. There's a cost to anything. If I wanted to be an ultra runner, there'd be a big cost, you know. But the unique thing about hunting is that we have to have participants for it to last. Because if it ever gets down to where there's 1 million hunters in the U.S., this democratic government of ours will shut it down. I mean, that's a very narrow, non-complex, simple way to say it. But there's so much at stake. Conservation dollars being funded by hunters, being funded by the Robertson-Pittman excise tax, which was going to be on the quiz, but I took it off.
I'm so glad I've never heard of it. So,
yeah. Well, that's the way conservation is funded in this country.
Okay.
I mean, that is one of the main arguments that we have for modern hunting is that we pay for habitat conservation and wildlife conservation through this excess tax.
Is that is that tax on ammunition or
tax on ammunition, hunting, and fishing gear?
Okay.
Guns, ammunition, all hunting gear like a grunt call, camouflage. You know,
yeah.
So of hunters, the population of hunters, what percentage do you think have knowledge about things like the Robert Pittman tax or the Lacey tax?
More and more since podcasts have popped up. Really, but would my dad know about the Robertson Pittman Act? No, I very doubtful. And my dad's a lifetime hunter.
Do you think hunters should know that kind of stuff?
Abso-dadgum-lutely.
Really?
Yeah, that's where our narrative has to shift. And that's inside of outdoor media. That is I preach that you got to have the words to say to people. Like, you can't just be like, I love to hunt. You got to have the words.
Yeah.
You got to be able to say, man, we fund habitat and conservation through this excise tax that we willfully pay more for, and that money goes into a slush fund of the federal government that's distributed to all the states. So Arkansas gets Robertson Pittman money every year that funds the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission buying habitat that's turned into public land. That would be one example. They buy, like, they might buy a farm that's next to a piece of public ground that's up for sale that would be beneficial for that piece of public ground to connect another piece, and they're like, we're going to buy that. I mean, they could use Robertson Pittman money to do that. That land is then forever cemented into the public domain. I mean, like, massive win for conservation. They're never going to put a mobile home park there. They're never going to put a strip mall there. It's going to be wildlife habitat for the foreseeable future. So it's like that kind of stuff. We got to know why. I mean, we got to have the narrative. We got to have the words, and that's what leaders do. Is leaders give people the words. They give people the vision, and they cast the. They cast a vision that people go, yeah, I want to. That's and they get it, and they start to talk like it. They start to sound like it. I mean, and that's what's happening in the outdoor space, and there's lots of people doing it. Lots of good people in the outdoor space that are preaching this same thing in a lot of different ways. So excellent. Well, thanks, guys.
Good conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
This is good. It's good for me. Really was.
Yeah.
Really was. And so I appreciate it. Closing comments. Jonathan Webster.
Well, a question to the things that you've said then. Are there places that hunters can go where there's like a statement of values, or a place where you can say here are the words, here's the stuff? Or is that just like stuff that you accumulate over time as you talk to hunters and you share in the community?
The thing is, there's so much nuance. There's so much difference. There's no one place that you can go that's just going to tell you everything you need to know about hunting.
Sure.
If Clay Newcomb made that statement of values, which would be 100% true for me, the pheasant hunter in Kansas would read it and be like, I get some of what Clay's saying, but that doesn't fully translate. You could take the biggest leaders in hunting, and I mean, so it's so hard. This continent is so big, so varied, so many game species, so many different levels of entry, so many different motivations. It's hard to do that.
So it's got to be transmitted by the people.
There are
in your
people
regions.
and things that I try to do that every time I write in Bear Hunting Magazine. I mean, it's like you're trying to portray the value system because the value system is what will make us persist through time. I mean, like the value system of the people that are involved in this activity. Those people will forecast the future. And that's one thing that I'm saying that I don't know that a lot of people are saying, is that it's the people. It's the individual hunter that's got to change.
Yeah.
Not you doing something different necessarily. You do have to do something different, but you've got to become something different. You've got to become more inclusive. You got to become more sacrificial. You got to become more heraldic. That's a word that we've been using. Heraldic. We've got to proclaim, and we've got to become more knowledgeable. We've got to become more intelligent. We've got to become more thoughtful. We've got to become more interested. We've got to become more introspective. We've got to understand our motivations. And we have to look deeper into why we even value this. I mean, like, why am I so interested in my kids being able to go up on that mountain and hunt bear in 50 years from now? Like, is that valuable? And I think it's valuable.
Yeah.
And I think anybody that has tasted the outdoors and tasted hunting in a real, genuine, authentic way, they're like, that part of the human experience is valuable. That is worth some investment of my life to make sure that this keeps happening. Valuable. That was part of your closing comment.
Yeah. No, I think that's fine.
Ty, closing comment.
Mentor a hunter. That's it. I think that obviously you're going to mentor your kids. That's just part of being a father or a mother if you're into the outdoors. But find somebody that's not your kid and mentor them, because I guarantee you there's people like myself and Jonathan who either are just getting into hunting as an adult or were in it and stepped away and are having to retool. And so there's interest there. There's people that want to get involved, but they're just not somebody's kid anymore. And they need somebody to just bring them along, because there's so much about it that's socially transmitted and passed down. It's a cultural thing. It's a tribal thing. Hunting is, and it's regionally locked in that way. That's to come back to what I was saying. Moving up here, the tribal hunting culture of Northwest Arkansas is so vastly different than where I grew up. I've had to retool and gain and learn and do, and so find the folks that are hunting curious around you. And and Clay, like you talked about, become a mentor. Don't just take them out in the woods once. Here's a 30-06. Go sit in that stand. The deer's going to come hit the corn and pop, and you're done. Be more mentoring. Take pride in what you do and understand it enough that you can help educate somebody else, and that's how it'll grow. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So
good.
Yeah.
Well said.
Excellent. Well, for us, for sure, to keep hunting alive as we know it today in this wild, rugged, and vast continent of North America that we live on, we've got to keep the wild places wild, because that's where the bears live.
All right, we nailed it.
As you know, the Meat Eater Live Tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.